Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course Nutrition for the Family. This is the third module, that is nutritional care during adulthood. In this first lecture, we shall be studying about basics of nutritional care during adulthood. I am Dr. Jaspreet Kaur, presently working as Associate Professor in Government College for Girls, Ludhiana, Punjab, affiliated to Punjab University, Chandigarh, and this project is funded by DTH Swayamprabha, MHRD, New Delhi. In this first introductory lecture, we shall be studying about basics of adulthood, and we will see what are the various physiological changes that happen during this phase. Then we will study about the various factors which affect the nutritional requirements of adults, and then we will move to nutritional guidelines for macronutrients. So let's start. Adulthood represents to the steady state of life when a person has completed his or her growth in terms of body size, and but along with that the breakdown and repair of body tissues, they go on continuously. So adults, they require adequate amount of essential nutrients through diet for maintaining sound physical and mental health. Not only this proper nutrition during adulthood and early years of life ensures good health until the old age is achieved. A good diet is for vigorous maturity. It can help in delaying the aging process also. But inadequate amount of certain nutrients in the diet in early years, if continued for a longer period of time, it may cause some serious complications. So, what are the physiological changes that happen during this phase, that is adulthood? The term adult refers to any individual in the age group of 19 years and above. This period, beginning from the 19 years and extending through the old age till the time of death of that person, it is considered as period of adulthood. As the person has achieved a full body size, the nutritional needs are mainly for the maintenance of body functions, and they are not required for the growth as they are required in the periods of childhood and adolescence. As the individual ages, there is a gradual and progressive change in the body functioning. So why does this change in body functioning occurs? This is because there is increased breakdown of tissues, and as compared to breakdown process, the renewal of the worn out tissues that gets reduced. So these changes, they are associated with the aging, which are common to all individuals. But there is great variation in this process from one person to another. In some individuals, the changes, they become significant relatively early, whereas in other cases, these changes appear much later in the adulthood. There are many factors which influence the nutrient needs of adults. So let us see what are those factors. The nutritional requirements of an adult are affected by a number of factors. They can be physical, they can be physiological, or they could be external factors. Physical factors would be such as gender, or some physiological factors which could be either physiological stress, For example, if the person is exercising more, his nutritional requirements will be different, or it could be because of some pathological stress, such as in case of some infection, the needs of nutrients they change. And along with that, there are some external factors such as climatic conditions or environmental temperature. All these are some important factors. So let us study all these factors in detail. So let us see what are the important factors which affect the nutrient requirements of adults. The first important factor is the effect of gender. As we know, the nutrient requirements of males, they are higher than the females. Now, the reason behind this is, as we know, males, they are taller, they are heavier than the females, and along with that there is difference in the body composition also. The males, they contain more lean body mass, so that is how their nutrient requirements they differ. And the second important factor which affects the nutrient requirements is the effect of age. Adult men and women, as we know, they have attained their full body size. That is why they require nutrients for the maintenance function. Whereas when we compare these nutrient needs of children and adolescents, they need these nutrients for meeting their growth needs also. And along with that, in case of adults, the body weight and the size, they are important factors which affects the nutrient requirements. Next important factor is the physiological state of the body. For example, among females, when they are menstruating, or when the female is pregnant, or she's feeding the baby, if she's a lactating woman, they require more nutrients than their normal times. So, physiological state of the body, that is also important determinant of nutrient requirements. And along with that, as we know, requirements of sports persons and people who are athletes or who are heavy worker, they perform high level of extreme activity. So sometimes their nutritional needs, they are 2-3 times more than the normal people. And along with that, there is effect of physical activity. As we know that the sedentary person, they need much less nutrient than a moderate or severely active person. And lastly, environment is an important factor which affects the nutrient requirements. It is considered that people who are living in the extreme weather conditions, where maybe there is so much of cold, or people who are staying in the high altitudes, they alter the need of certain nutrients. As discussed earlier, the needs of adults, they are dependent upon a host of factors, and they determine the requirements of an individual. Now, the previous studies conducted by Indian Council of Medical Research and many scientists, they have found that there is decline in the undernutrition with stunting and wasting in our Indian population, whereas there is 20% increase in the overnutrition which was found in the adult men and women. So based on these findings, Indian Council of Medical Research, they have set recommendations for various age groups. Now these recommendations, they cannot be given to the individual person because we are dealing with the population. For generalizing the requirements, the ICMR has formulated for the adults in term of reference man and reference woman. So let us see this concept of reference man and woman. Who is reference man or woman? They are defined on the basis of body weights of well-nourished healthy adults who have satisfactory growth during their childhood, and they are currently leading a healthy and moderately active life, and they are living under the normal, comfortable conditions. So let us see who is a reference Indian adult man. A reference Indian adult man has an age of 19 to 39 years, and his height is 177 centimeters, and his weight is 65 kilograms, and he has a BMI, that is body mass index, of 20.75. We calculate body mass index by dividing weight in kilograms by height in meter square. And let us see who is reference Indian adult woman. A reference Indian adult woman is between the age of 19 to 39 years, and her height is 162 centimeters, and her weight is 55 kilograms, and her BMI is 20.95. Let's talk about the nutritional needs of these adults. Why do we need energy? The energy, we know it is a fuel which is provided by the macronutrients, and our body needs energy for maintaining the body temperature, for metabolic activity, for supporting our physical work and growth purposes. So we can say we need energy for basically meeting the needs of basal metabolism. Along with that, we need energy for carrying out the regulatory activities of our body. For example, digestion, absorption, and utilization of food. And along with that, we need energy for carrying out various activities which are voluntary activities of our body, that is known as physical activity. Now let us study all these components. So let's study our first component, that is our basal metabolism. Now what is this basal metabolism? You can say it is the running cost of our body. This is the amount of energy required to meet the involuntary activities of our body, the things which are not under our control. It is also known as basal metabolism or the resting metabolism. And the rate at which our body is consuming energy to carry out all the involuntary activities of our body, it is known as basal metabolic rate, BMR, or resting metabolic rate, RMR. Now this RMR or basal metabolic rate, it comprises of around 60 to 70% of total energy expenditure of our body. Another important factor which changes this basal metabolic rate is it declines with the age. So therefore, as the person ages, there will be decrease in the energy requirement also. And along with that, this basal metabolic rate, it falls when there is restriction of energy intake. If someone is losing weight involuntarily or deliberately, if the person is starving or he's taking too less food, this will reduce the basal metabolic rate. So this was the first component of energy expenditure. Let's talk about the second component of energy expenditure. This is known as activity thermogenesis. This is the most variable component of energy expenditure. This is the amount of energy which we spend to carry out the voluntary activities of our body. Now, these can be ranged anywhere from 15% to 30% of our total energy expenditure. And along with that, there is another component. We call it need. That is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is the energy which is expended on all activities which are not counted for either in the basal metabolism or in the activity thermogenesis. Say the amount of energy required to maintain the posture, that will be counted for need. Now let us study about the different type of lifestyles based on the type of activity, as they will affect the energy requirements of adults. Let us talk about the first type of lifestyle, that is sedentary lifestyle or the sedentary activity. Who are the people who fall in this category? These people, they have occupations that do not demand much physical effort, and they are not required to walk long distances. Generally, they use motor vehicles for transportation. They do not exercise or participate in the sports regularly, and they spend most of the leisure time either watching TV or talking or reading, so listening to radio or using computers. So the example of this type of category is teachers or the office workers such as executives or the clerks or the typists, etc. And in urban areas also, people who are not indulging in any physically demanding activities, and during daytime or outside their office work, they are not working. Now, this will also include those housewives who have either labor saving devices with them, or they have servants or the domestic helps. So they need not put in energy to carry out manual work. So all this type of people, they will fall into sedentary lifestyle. The second category of physical activity is the active or moderately active lifestyle. Now, who are the people who fall in this category? These people, they have occupations that are not strenuous in terms of energy demands, just like we studied in the previous slide, but it involves more energy expenditure than the people who are leading sedentary lifestyle. Now, these people, they can be sedentary along according to their occupation, but they might be doing some kind of moderate to vigorous physical activity as a part of their daily routine. For example, the daily performance of an hour, and for example, continuous or several bouts during day of vigorous exercise such as jogging, cycling, dancing, or various sports activities. Now, the examples of this category are associated with occupations such as servants or the house cleaners or the masons or people working at construction sites, construction workers, or the rural women who are not staying in much developed villages, and they participate in the agriculture chores, or they walk to distances to fetch water or fuel or wood. So all these type of people, they will be considered in the moderately active lifestyle. The third type of lifestyle is the vigorous or vigorously active lifestyle. So these people, they engage regularly in the strenuous work or in strenuous leisure activities for several hours in a day. For example, a woman with non-sedentary occupations who swim or dance an average 2 hours each day, or some non-mechanized agricultural laborer who works with an axe or a sickle for several hours daily, or who walks on a rugged plain for miles and miles, or who people who are carrying heavy loads. So the examples of this type of lifestyle people are heading is can be rickshaw pullers or the mine workers or the coolies. How do we measure energy? The energy is measured most commonly according to kilocalories. But recently, a new unit has been used that is known as joule. So 1 kilocalorie is equivalent to 4.184 kilojoules, or in other words, 1 kilojoule is equal to 0.239 kilocalories. So now let's talk about the energy requirements for adults. As we have just discussed, that the growth is no longer an energy demanding factor in this age group, and the basal metabolic rate is also relatively constant among population groups of a given age or gender. So habitual physical activity and the body weight, they are the main determinants of the energy requirements. Now giving proper care to energy is very important for adults, as the Indians, we are becoming more sedentary, and our basal metabolic rate is also lower than the Western population. Therefore, giving due importance to the energy requirement is very, very important. To maintain energy balance, energy intake must be equal to energy output, which will result in stable and healthy body weight. It is not essential to balance the daily intake and expenditure level, but over a period of say week or a fortnight, the intake and the expenditure, they should be in balance. As we know, the excess energy, it is saved as fat inside the body. And if the person continue to eat more and more, what will happen? This will lead to overweight and obesity after some time. Therefore, the new dietary recommendations, they have introduced a new concept that is known as average energy requirement. That is known as estimated average energy requirement. Here, the focus is more on the energy expenditure. Now, what does this mean? That means the amount of energy intake that should be dependent upon the amount of energy expenditure. The person should be able to manage the intake level according to his physical activity. For practical purposes, since the energy expenditure associated with the regulatory thermogenesis, it merges into the measurement related to the cost of physical activity. That means to carry out the voluntary activities. This new approach has come up, which takes into account just two principal components of energy expenditure. The first one is basal metabolic rate, and second one is the physical activity. Now let us see how we calculate the physical activity, and along with that, how do we calculate the energy requirements. So here the physical activity, as we can see, there is a table which shows the type of lifestyle, and along with that there have assigned some PAL level values. That means physical activity level values has been assigned. So for the ease of calculation, this physical activity level has been divided into three type of lifestyle, as we have seen in the previous slides. The first one is the sedentary lifestyle, and the PAL value has been assigned as 1.40, and for the moderately active person the value is 1.80, and for heavy worker it is 2.30. Now what are these values for? These values, they will be used to calculate the energy requirements. So the energy requirement will be calculated by multiplying the basal metabolic rate of a person with the physical activity level value. Now let us see how this calculation works out. As we can see, this is the table which shows estimated energy requirements of Indians of various age groups, of various weights and activities. That means the lifestyle. As we can see in this table, the first column is of gender. That means we are talking about males and females here. And it has been divided into three categories on the basis of age. The first table is of 19 to 30 years of adults. Then the second table is 30 to 60 years of age, and then more than 60 years of age. As we can see, The second column is of body weight. That means for the male ranging from 45 kilograms of weight to 75, and for females 40 kilos to 70 kilograms. And along with that, the next column is of basal metabolic rate. So this is the basal metabolic rate value which we shall be using to calculate the energy requirements of 19 to 30-year-old males or females. And after that, 30 to 60 years, they have another BMR values. For more than 60 years, they have another BMR values. So if we see, we just saw in the previous slides that the reference man who is of 65 kgs, his BMR is 1506. So a sedentary worker needs 2109 calories, a moderate worker needs 2711 categories, and a heavy worker needs 3465. Whereas all these values, they will change once we go to the next age group, that is 30 to 60, where the BMR is lower than the previous age group. Now if we consider this, let us talk about the reference woman, so who is weighing 55 kgs. Her BMR is 1184, and if we see the recommendation of energy, that is 1657 for a sedentary worker, 2130 for a moderately active female, and for a heavy worker, it falls in the 27-22 kilocalories daily. Now let us see what we saw in the previous table. Let us see how these values they were driven. Let us consider the male who is falling in the first category. That means in the age of 19 to 30 years, his weight is 65. We just saw the BMR value is 1506. And for on the basis of physical activity level, as we had seen, the sedentary is physical activity level 1.4. For moderate, we are using the value of 1.8, and for heavy, we are using the value 2.3. Now let us see how these energy requirements they were calculated. For sedentary, 1506 into 1.4, that comes out to be 2108.4, that means 2109 calories. And for moderate worker, 1506 was the BMR multiplied by the 1.8 factor, 2710.8, that means 2711 as rounded off kilocalories. And coming to the heavy worker, again BMR is same, 1506 multiplied by 2.3, the value comes out to be 3463.8, that means 3465 kilocalories if we round off the values. Now let us see what happens when the person falls in the second category. That means he falls into the age of 30 to 60 years. So here the weight is same, but the BMR has gone down. So again, we know sedentary activity 1.4, moderate 1.8, and heavy 2.3. And if we do the calculation, so these are the energy requirements of a person falling in 30 to 60. And similarly, if we move towards the age group more than 60 years, the calculations they will change. That is how we calculate the energy requirements. Let's summarize what we have studied in this lecture. In this first lecture, we had studied about the adulthood. We studied that it represents a steady state in the life when the person has completed his or her growth in terms of body size. Then we studied that there are many factors which affects the body needs of various nutrients in the adults. They are physical, they are physiological, and along with that, there are some external factors. Then we studied that the recommendations they cannot be given to the individual person. Therefore, for generalizing the requirements, Indian Council of Medical Research has formulated the recommendations in terms of reference man and woman. Then we studied that reference man and woman, they are defined on the basis of body weights of well-nourished healthy adults who have satisfactory growth during their childhood, and they are currently leading a healthy and moderately active life, and they are living under the normal comfortable conditions. And then we studied that energy, it is a fuel which is provided by the macronutrients, and our body needs energy for maintaining its body temperature, for carrying out metabolic activities, for supporting the physical work, and for growth. And then we studied that for practical purposes, we will be using only two principal components, that is basal metabolic rate and physical activity. Then we studied what are the different type of physical activity defining the lifestyles of people, that is sedentary, moderate, and heavy. And then we studied that the unit of measurement of energy is kilocalorie or kilojoules. And then we studied that for adults, because they have relatively stable basal metabolic rate, habitual physical activity, and body weight, they are two important determinants of energy requirements. Then we studied the approach of new energy intake. It accounts to two principal components, that is BMR and physical activity. And then we studied with the help of table how estimated energy requirements are defined for Indians of various ages, of different weights, and different activities. We shall be continuing the nutritional requirement of other macronutrients in the coming lectures. Thank you very much.